Welcome back to Celebreal, where we break down the stories the industry hopes you overlook. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. We dive into the real timelines, the real consequences, and the truth behind the headlines. Today's story isn't just another rapper in trouble headline. This one hits deep because we're watching the slow, painful unraveling of someone who once stood at the top of the game. So let's get into it.
Protesters say they are standing against what they call, quote, political and police corruption. We spoke to one who said she hopes that the group continues to grow.
The group gets bigger, obviously, and I hope they start weeding out these corrupt police, judges, DAs, all of it.
From the outside, it might look like just another fallen rapper heading back to court. But with Young Buck, what we're really watching in April 2025 is the slow public collapse of a whole legacy. His latest arrest in Sumner County is not a random headline. It's the moment years of legal trouble, financial ruin, and a brutal feud finally lock into place, with a real chance that this time he doesn't walk away. When officials confirmed he violated his bond supervision at least 6 different times.
After repeated violations of his bond supervision, Tennessee native and straight outta Cashville rapper Young Buck now has to serve time.
So Sumner County officials say there was a hearing earlier this week to revoke bond for David Darnell Brown,
tied to that 2020 case involving domestic allegations, vandalism, and a weapon charge. The judge's response was blunt. 30 days behind bars now, and a new bond and full trial still waiting on the other side. For a man who once stood next to 50 Cent, Eminem, and Dr. Dre on the biggest stages in music, we're suddenly talking about whether he spends a long stretch in a Tennessee cell. Sumner County held a hearing earlier this week to revoke bond for David Darnell Brown. The conditions he broke weren't complicated. Since securing his release in 2020 on a $60,000 bond, Buck was ordered to check in with his bond supervisor twice a month while under GPS monitoring for both a domestic case and a separate substance-related case.
Protesters spoke out against straight out of Cashville rapper Young Buck being ordered to serve time. David Darnell Brown, known as Young Buck, was sentenced to serve time for repeated violations of his bond supervision. Officials say Brown was ordered to serve 30 days in Sumner County Jail after his bond.
Prosecutors say he simply stopped showing up. By April 7th, 2025, the district attorney's office had enough and pushed for a hearing. And that same day, he was booked into the county jail to begin his 30-day sentence. Just when his supporters hoped the 2020 incident was finally inching toward resolution, everything moved backwards. His trial date was originally set for July 24th, then pushed all the way to January 12th, 2026, leaving him stuck in a legal limbo that could easily end with a conviction measured in decades, not months. And when you line that timeline up with his past record, the pattern is hard to ignore. Outside the courthouse in Sumner County, the mood looked completely different depending on which side of the barricade you stood. Local news cameras caught protesters holding signs, telling reporters they believed Young Buck was the real victim in the 2020 altercation.
You know, I was given 30 days for basically being absent, not showing up on time and stuff like that, while being out on bond type of situation. So, you know, I be kind of trying to figure it out because in the beginning it was more like being a big fish in a small pond.
Pointing out that his former partner was also charged with reckless endangerment after allegedly firing a weapon in his direction. One organizer even said Buck was a provider trying to escape a toxic situation and that the system was punishing him instead of protecting him. Inside the courthouse, though, officials were focused on his missed appointments and his long trail of probation issues dating back to the Vibe Awards case and later threats involving another former partner.
Strong point with the crew, you know what I'm saying? You know, I've always loved the music more than the money. It might sound crazy to some of y'all, but that's the truth because I wasn't making no money from music. In the beginning, I fell in love with just the music, and that's what I maintained my love for.
In that gap between fans calling him a father and a role model, and the state labeling him a repeat violator, you can see the same split that's followed him since the late 2000s. And as always, the internet made things worse. His newest mugshot turned into a spectacle within hours. 50 Cent, who practically turned trolling former allies into a second career, reposted the booking photo to his millions of followers, joking about the shape of Buck's head and implying officers must have roughed him up before the picture was taken.
Doing with his life, 50 doing whatever he doing with his life, and it is what it is, you know what I'm saying? But I went down that road of trying to get us back together and getting back together and all of that, and, you know.
It wasn't a one-off punchline either. He'd used the same image before, pairing it with cartoon clips and exaggerated characters to remind the world that his former G-Unit partner was back in trouble yet again. For anyone who remembers when Buck's name sat next to platinum plaques and sold-out tours, seeing that mugshot turned into a meme showed just how far the power dynamic has shifted. But the legal danger is only part of the fall.
So it's like now I'm in a place where it's like, you know, ain't no sense of talking about it. Let me just show you, you know what I mean? So, you know, you can just expect a lot of new music, a lot of new movement. This is the first time I even sit in front of a camera doing an interview in a long time, man, you know?
By the time he walked back into a cell in April 2025, the financial foundation under Young Buck's career had already been wiped clean. In 2023, after a long, messy bankruptcy battle, court filings confirmed he was forced into a full liquidation, roughly $1.05 million in assets, music catalog, studio gear, cars, jewelry, stacked up to be sold off. And nearly $445,000 of that went straight to legal fees alone, leaving roughly $600,000 left to split among creditors.
Yeah, you know, and I think, you know, once as an artist, once you give it to the people and give it to the streets, you know, they gonna make it, they gonna let you know what you're dealing with. So I'm definitely about to shoot the first video off of that project, Do Better. And you know, like I say, if you ain't heard it, make sure you get out there and go stream me, buy me, download me.
Everyone from the IRS to old business partners to one very personal name who never misses a chance to twist the knife. And right at the center of that bankruptcy ledger sat the number fans recognized instantly, $200,006.90, owed to 50 Cent. A court sided with 50 on that long-disputed $250K payment. 50 called it a personal loan Buck never paid back. Buck's team insisted it was a label advance, and even argued there was no proof he ever received the money at all. The judge didn't buy it. Buck was ordered to accept responsibility for just over $200,000, and that single debt became a major reason his catalog, gear, and possessions were shoved onto the auction block. And it's hard to call that mismanagement when the main winning creditor is the same man clowning his mugshots online and hinting for years that he still controls the strings.
And it's like I said, I got a lot of music out. I think a lot of the things that I've been through and going through in life has played a part in regards to people actually really paying close attention and realizing I've been him.
This is where the whispers of sabotage stop sounding like fan fiction and start sounding like the only logical question. Industry insiders point out something else. The bankruptcy didn't just wipe debts. It finally broke Buck out of the old contract that had blocked him from releasing albums for years. The same deal he blamed back in 2009-2010 for trapping him in the mixtape grind just to stay afloat.
After we had met 50 and he had, made the record with him up here or whatnot, we left New York and went across the country to California. And going across the country to California, we was going on Suge Knight's time, which I didn't have full recognition or full knowledge of what was going on because Juvenile was the one who was spearheading.
The fact that G-Unit Records once hit him with a $10 million lawsuit, and that even bankruptcy couldn't erase what he still owed 50 well into the 2020s, has insiders questioning whether Buck's financial collapse was just bad decisions, or part of a long-game power play by a rival who rose higher and stayed stronger. No one in 50's camp has ever admitted to any calculated campaign beyond collecting what the court says he's owed. But when the same man can clown you online, flex the contract, and control the narrative at the same time, it's easy for fans to believe the strategy runs much deeper. Still, this didn't come from nowhere. Rewind to 2014, and there was a moment, a tiny window, where it looked like Young Buck had pulled off one of the rarest moves in hip-hop, a real comeback under the same crew that once exiled him. The G-Unit reunion at Hot 97. Summer Jam on June 1st, 2014, put him back on stage with 50 Cent, Lloyd Banks, and Tony Yayo. Months later, they dropped The Beauty of Independence and The Beast is G-Unit, with Buck's voice, hunger, and energy all over both tapes. Fans heard flashes of the same raw grit from his Straight Outta Cashville era, now filtered through prison time, IRS raids, and a federal weapon sentence. For a moment, the story shifted from collapse to redemption. Buck even launched a new mixtape series built around the number 10, proof he still believed he had a long-term plan. But even during that reunion phase, things with 50 never left the danger zone. Old accusations about missed taxes, substance issues, and loyalty conflicts with Shaw Money XL kept resurfacing in interviews and online shots. By 2018, when Buck started teasing new music and hinting at an album supposedly tied to both 50 and Dr. Dre, the cracks showed again. Legal filings popped back up over unpaid obligations, and 50 publicly claimed that any move Buck tried to make in the industry had to go through him first. For a man trying to rebuild after an 18-month federal sentence and earlier community service from the Vibe Awards case, the idea that a former mentor could still block his career so deep into the 2010 S and 2020 S made the sabotage theory sound more believable than ever. Then came the personal jabs, the kind that go way beyond money. In 2019, leaked audio involving Buck and a trans person went viral, and 50 turned what should have been a private crisis into a public execution. He posted homophobic captions, making the situation a punchline and framing it as betrayal. The feud flared up again in early 2025 when Buck appeared in a clip, sending respect to Big Meech and telling critics to stop playing with his name. 50 instantly jumped online, mocking Buck's orientation again, writing, "He fell out with me because he liked boys," and adding that he never told him to go loving on a tranny. He couldn't resist using long-running rumors as a weapon, right when the legal system was squeezing Buck the hardest. To anyone watching, it stopped looking like a simple personality clash and started feeling like a long-term effort to keep Buck's name tied to scandal instead of music. That final insult in 2025 did more than spark a few messy headlines. It landed right on top of the legal and financial disasters already crushing him. While Buck supporters stood outside the courthouse insisting he was being targeted by a biased system, and reminding reporters that his former partner in the 2020 case was also charged, 50's comments were doing real damage. His trolling made sure that any promoters, labels, or potential collaborators saw Buck as radioactive before he even had a chance to explain himself. Even as Buck tried to stay positive online, celebrating the 18th anniversary of Straight Outta Cashville and hinting at new music, the reality around him kept tightening. An upcoming 2026 trial, lingering debts from a bankruptcy he barely survived, and a relentless public attack from a more powerful rival turned his future into a minefield. And as that January court date gets closer, the question isn't just how much time he might serve. It's whether there's any version of the future where young Buck ever walks back into a studio as a truly free man again. Because here's the part nobody's saying out loud. When a trial tied to a 2020 incident gets delayed again and again, prosecutors aren't just clearing schedules. Legal insiders say it almost always means the state is quietly stacking witnesses, gathering documents, and pulling every past incident into a single narrative, the kind designed to lock someone down for years, not months. They now have bond logs showing every missed check-in from 2024 and early 2025, GPS records tracking where he went when he was supposed to be checking in, and a paper trail tying every violation back to the same man who already carries a 2012 conviction for possession of a weapon as a felon. From the state's perspective, every skipped meeting is another brick in the wall they're building around one phrase: repeat offender. And you can already see the strategy lining up. They're not treating this like a single chaotic night in 2020. They're shaping it into the latest chapter of a long pattern that started with the Vibe Awards in 2004, hardened with the 18-month federal sentence in 2012, and kept resurfacing through the 2016 threats case, the 2022 vandalism arrest, and now the bond violations tied to both domestic and substance charges. One former county attorney called it the snowball method. Let the little violations stack up, then walk into trial and say, look, this isn't a mistake, it's a lifestyle. By January 2026, prosecutors will likely have every slip-up cleaned, labeled, and ready to play in front of a jury. And the worst part? That snowball is rolling straight through a system that already sees him as unstable. When officials emphasized in 2025 that his bond breaches were repeated and that the judge had to physically revoke his freedom just to regain control of the situation, they weren't just describing his behavior. They were building the narrative they planned to use in court. Young Buck doesn't follow orders, and nothing has ever changed that. A juror who hears all that, then learns about a past federal sentence involving a weapon, isn't going to separate one decade from another. Add in the fact that his 2020 arrest involved allegations inside his own home and a firearm, and it becomes extremely easy for a prosecutor to stand up and say, this man has been given chance after chance and still chose chaos. Whether that's the full truth or not, that's clearly the story they're preparing to sell. But outside the courtroom, a completely different narrative has been built piece by piece for nearly 20 years. And it has 50 Cent's fingerprints all over it. Because if you rewind to the 2014 reunion, the energy was totally different. G-Unit back on stage, 2 new EPs dropping, Buck sounding grateful and revived, laughing in interviews, pouring drinks in videos, looking like the past drama and IRS problems were finally behind him. Fast forward to April 2025, and the same man's new mugshot is being cropped, memed, and blasted to millions of followers, with 50 clowning his hairline and joking that officers must have roughed him up. And it's not the first time. Every major low point since 2019 has come packaged with a fresh caption, a new meme, or a reminder that he still owes money. On the surface, it looks like routine trolling, just 50 being 50. But when you line those posts up next to Buck's legal timeline, the pattern feels colder, sharper, almost strategic. Because while the court builds one narrative, 50 Cent has been building another one of his own. And both might collide in January 2026. Remember, this is the same 50 Cent who walked out of that long bankruptcy battle in 2023 with a legal win worth just over $200,000, backed by a judge who agreed his version of the $250,000 dispute was the only one that mattered. The same man who publicly claimed he'd bailed Buck out of tax trouble before, called him financially reckless, and then watched as bankruptcy forced the liquidation of over $1 million in assets, including the very music catalog that helped build the G-Unit brand. When that level of financial power intersects with a public campaign of humiliation, you have to wonder if this is pettiness or something much more calculated. Industry veterans say this looks like psychological warfare in broad daylight. One former road manager from another camp said, every time Buck's name trends for legal trouble, 50's posts become free negative PR that reaches far beyond Tennessee. Potential jurors, venue owners, even judges see the memes long before they see any paperwork. So when 50 revived old rumors about Buck's private life in early 2025, right as protests were forming outside the Sumner County Courthouse and reporters were breaking down his upcoming trial, it's hard to believe those posts were just jokes. And the history behind that mockery runs deep. This is the same relationship that cracked in 2008 with that infamous recorded phone call of Buck crying and apologizing. The same rift that widened when 50 went on the radio, alleging substance issues. And the same feud that turned brutal in 2019 when private audio involving Buck and a trans person leaked, and 50 used it as ammunition instead of support. In other words, none of this is new. It's a pattern. And now it's colliding with the worst legal moment of Buck's life. 50 didn't just distance himself, he weaponized the fallout. He hit Buck with that line about falling out because he liked boys. And when Buck showed love to Big Meech in 2025, 50 went right back to the same wound, recycling the same insinuations and turning Buck's personal life into a public punchline all over again. And now, hanging over everything, is one chilling possibility nobody around him can ignore. If that jury in 2026 buys the pattern prosecutors are selling, Buck could be looking at a sentence that takes him off the board for a long time. At an age where comebacks are rare, some industry people already see this as the last chapter. They've moved on to new stars, new deals, and new alliances, often with the same man cashing court-ordered checks while clowning Buck online. So the real question becomes this: is young Buck walking into a fair trial, or into a finale that was already written through memes, headlines, and humiliation years before he ever steps into court? Let me know what you think in the comments. Is this justice or a setup? Don't forget to like, subscribe, drop a comment, and share the video. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.